You are now live.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the July 20th meeting of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. My name is Hugh Millward. I will be chairing the meeting, and the Vice Chairperson is Douglas Wetmore. We will begin with a roll call of the present members so that we can confirm that you are both audible and visible. And just to remind you, the charter, the municipal charter requires that you be seen and heard since this is a public meeting. I'll just go through the roll call here, and if you can just introduce yourself and say hello. So Douglas Wetmore.
Present. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Douglas. Michelle Mahoney, who is a new member of the committee.
Hello, I'm here. How are you?
Hello, Michelle, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Annika Ropel sent her regrets. So next we have Holly Woodill.
Present and accounted for. Trails Geek.
Thank you, Holly. Milena Casanavicius.
You're getting better and better, Mr. Chair. I am present. Unfortunately, I do have to leave at 5:30 today.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Let's hope we can get our business finished by then.
Okay.
Next is Elizabeth Pugh.
I'm here. Thank you, Mr.
Hello,
Chair.
Elizabeth. Hello, and Councillor Patty Cottle.
Galassi.
Hello, Councillor. Peter Zimmer. Peter
Hi.
Zimmer.
Present.
Okay, hello, Peter. Paul Young has sent regrets. So next is Miles McCormick.
Present, Hugh.
Thank you, Miles. And finally, Brittany McLean.
Present and here representing Cycling Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Brittany. We also have staff members with us. Elizabeth McDonald is our legislative assistant.
Hello.
And David McIsaac is manager of active transportation.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, David. And we have a
Thank you.
guest for the presentation coming up, and Natalia Diaz Insense.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello, Natalia. Okay, I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the pre-peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Next, we have approval of minutes, the minutes of June 15th. The draft minutes were circulated. I would ask for a call. I'm calling for a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Thank you, Peter. And I need a seconder.
So,
I'll
Who's that?
second Holly.
Okay, Holly. Are there any issues then with the minutes as circulated? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes as circulated, please say aye or raise your hand.
aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. Okay, none opposed, so that motion carries. The minutes are approved as circulated. Next, we have approval of the order of business for today and approval of any additions or deletions. So, Elizabeth, are there any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions.
Okay. All right. So, motion to approve the order of business as circulated, the agenda as circulated. I require a mover and a seconder.
I can move it, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Any seconder?
I'll second. Peter.
Thank you, Peter. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the agenda as circulated?
Aye.
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 Yep, say aye or, sorry. And anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, no opposition. The agenda is approved as circulated. Item 4 is business arising out of the minutes, and there is none. Item 5 is a call for declaration of conflict of interests. And that relates to any item on the agenda where a committee member feels they have a conflict of interest. They should declare it now. No one has a conflict of interest. That's very good. Item 6 is consideration of deferred business, and there is none. Other than today's presentation, which was deferred from an earlier meeting. Item 7, correspondence. Elizabeth, I guess we've had several items of correspondence which will be dealt with under item 9.2.1, but recently you circulated an item that will relate to our presentation today, the Legal Road Users Bicycle Club. And that was from Matt Stickland with that group. And some of us have received that and some of us haven't, apparently. Elizabeth, can you just show that item right
Yeah,
now?
absolutely. Was there anyone else that did not receive the correspondence that was circulated yesterday? It was item 7.1.1.
Just me.
All right, I will share my screen.
Okay.
All right, so I have the correspondence. It's not very long. I have it on the screen here for anyone that wanted to review it, needed a refresher, anything like that.
And the key thing about this is that this group is asking that we make sure that, assuming that the motion today is approved, that staff look at bike buses as part of active school travel. And I'm sure that would be the case, but it's important to flag it, and this letter is flagging that. We will have time to discuss this in relation to today's presentation shortly. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So item 7.2 is petitions. Have there been any petitions brought forward to your office, Elizabeth?
There have been none.
Okay. Have any of the committee members received any petitions? No. Okay. Then we'll move on to presentations, and our main presentation today is on active school travel, the Active School Travel Initiative. The presenter is Natalia Diaz-Insense. There is a motion that has been developed in relation to this, and after we've had the presentation and a general discussion, we will move to that motion. We'll proceed to that motion. So, Natalia, you are free to make your presentation.
Perfect. So Natalia, I'm just going to promote you to co-host, so you'll be able to share your screen. That invitation should come up in just a second. And the option to share your screen is just the little green arrow pointing up at the bottom menu bar there.
Okay. I think I am sharing it now. Am I not?
Perfect. Yep. Are you able to go on slideshow so it's full screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. It looks great.
I just need to move can you hear me well?
Yep.
Yes.
It's just that I have you all in the middle here. I want to try to put this down so it doesn't hide my screen. Here we go. Okay. I don't see. Okay, just a sec. I'll put it on the left-hand side. All right. All right, so I'm ready to go. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the invitation to present in this committee. I did get the invitation from Hugh a long time ago. It was March or April. It was April actually, and I was going to be presenting in May, but didn't make it that month. And last month I had an issue, medical issue. So I really appreciate you being patient with me and allowing me to present today. This presentation is kind of a review of what has been happening over the last year or so in HRM regarding active school travel. The presentation is about the stakeholder roundtable series that we've had over the last a year or so. And we have done that with support from the Department of Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage, and 4 counselors, Lisa Blackburn, Patty Cottle, Catherine Morse, and Trish Purdy. So I want to acknowledge that. And this was support that was given to Walk and Roll, through whom I was able to kind of facilitate some conversations, and as well other people who attended and helped with that. Those sessions happened between March 2022 and March 2023. The goal of those stakeholder meetings were to mobilize collective action on active school travel, make the case for investing in a collaborative, and I want to emphasize that, collaborative and effective evidence-based approach to promoting and supporting school communities in their active school travel efforts, and set the stage for working together on a common agenda in order to reverse the current trends in active school travel in HRM and achieve long-term population and systems level change. Who was part of these conversations? I just want to briefly mention it was many counselors at different stages, different meetings, HRM staff, people from the Halifax Regional Police, from the Halifax Regional Center for Education, school staff and SAC reps, school parent volunteers, Nova Scotia Health Authority, IWK Safety, Child Safety Link, Dalhousie University and St. Mary's University researchers, a number of NGOs such as the Crosswalk Society of Nova Scotia, Halifax Cycling Coalition, Walk and Roll, Recreation Nova Scotia, Hike Nova Scotia, and representatives from 4 different provincial departments: Public Works, Natural Resources and Renewables, Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, and Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage. What were the roundtable series about? In different times, we discussed different things. The very first one happened in March 2022, where it was like a preliminary roundtable, and it was over Zoom because of COVID. And in that one, we just wanted to review the issues. We wanted to review the problems, the data, and by that I mean the trends that we notice, because we don't have a lot of data, review best practices, conditions for systems change, collective action, and start a discussion on barriers. It was a very ambitious agenda that day. It was over Zoom, and it was, a relatively short meeting for an hour and a half, and we got that far. We didn't get as far as we wanted. Some of the things that we did afterwards are part of the things we wanted to do the first day. And so we did get to discuss the barriers and facilitators, and that's how far we got that day. But it was mostly knowledge mobilization, not action mobilization that day. And we identified some barriers and facilitators. In December 2022, we rejoined. We tried to re-engage. The goal was to re-engage, reaffirm interest, and review takeaways. Some of the people that participated in the first one came back. Most of them came back. We added more people. We tried to build consensus for collaborative action and explore a foundation for like a model for collaborative work. And in January, February, and March of this year, year, we have been working on a common agenda and an action plan and some shared outcomes and metrics. We didn't get to do the metrics in the end in March, but we do have some shared outcomes, at least some tentative ones, and some tentative leadership model and governance framework to work together. And this is what I want to talk about today here. Just briefly going over the trends, you all know that we don't collect data in HRM in Nova Scotia. There is some data collection happening in some provinces, but it's not available. Data on active school travel, I mean, you know, we have an idea that there's not a lot of walking to school. We do know that, but we do not know how much and where is better than in what areas have better walking rates than others. But so what we do know that the numbers are not very good. You know, that data has been published, and in 2020, Participaction provided a report card that showed that, you know, the ones that walk the most are the teenagers that go to junior high. Elementary school students are next. And then the ones that walk the least are the teenagers that go to high school, and the numbers are very low. 24% is the maximum that you get for walking, 21% for elementary, and 17% for high school students. And we know that it was a bit better 10 years ago, and a lot better just a generation ago, where things have flipped over. Driving to school has increased by 28%, and walking has dropped by 30%. And these came through a study that was done over 10 years ago, and we see that walking was 28%. It is currently 28% on average, and walking used to be 58% for our parents. You know, and the kids used to be driven a lot less, and now they're driven, 41% of them are driven to school. So we know the data is bad, we know the trends are bad, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. We know the benefits, and I'm not going to go through in detail because we know the benefits. You know, the less car congestion you have, the better, less pollution, better air quality around schools. You want people to walk because you get better short-term and long-term health from that, reduce health and travel expenses, healthier and happier families, better family community cohesion, and overall better student health and wellness and better academic performance. That's been demonstrated too through research studies. But also we know the challenges, and we know that traffic safety is one of the big challenges, and that's the thing that people think of first. And we've done some you know, data collection through surveys in some schools in HRM. We know, for instance, that traffic safety, 13% of the people who drive to school say that traffic safety is the main reason, but 31% do it because of the weather or the distance, and 40% do it because of convenience. So that's the number one reason. And it's not just in HRM, it's across the board. Time pressure and convenience, and that's convenience for the parents, okay? And that is an important thing, because that's what you want to change. The other thing we talked about during those sessions, especially the first one, and in one of the sessions that we had an overview of the issues for interventions, effective interventions. It's been the case that over the years, over the last 40 years, there's been a lot of efforts to promote active transportation, going to school, walking. There is, at the beginning, there was 3 E's. As I said, traffic safety being an issue. We all know that. Because of traffic safety, people focus on the improvements to the built environment. So engineering, the E for engineering, was one of the very first things that was introduced as a possible intervention. And that's one of the most expensive ones because, changes to the built environment are very expensive. But these are things that we can build for in the future when we build new communities. And, this is something we can address for sure. Enforcement is the second one that was introduced many years ago. Enforcement to ensure that traffic laws around the schools are obeyed. And also education, obviously, making sure people have the materials and know how to walk to school, training programs for children and events like that. And so these were the 3 most common ones that we had for a number of years. But we realized it was not enough. There was some promotion that was needed, encouragement. And that's where the encouragement, the 4th E was introduced, encouragement from promotional programs and events. And by that, I mean things like iWalk, International Walk to School Day, where it's an event, but programs that are year-long programs that are more than just the one single day walking. And then other participation activities that include, that are, equitable for underserved groups as well. That's another E that was introduced. And one that's been around too for a number of years now, at least 20 years, is data collection, the evaluation portion of these interventions, because you want to make sure that whatever you want to do is assessed and, to see if that was really effective. So this was part of all the interventions. These are the most effective interventions, and we usually refer to them as the 6 E's of the active school travel promotion. We talked about these in those sessions because not everybody is up to speed on those things. Those people who work maybe in the Department of Public Works might be more familiar with them than others. So this was kind of having a bit of everybody catching up on different things depending on what their background was. And we also talked about school travel planning, which is a program. It's not, it's a program that includes a lot of these interventions because it's a collaborative program. It's not just the one type of intervention, a program that actually is meant to assist the schools and the groups, the communities, to develop their own action plans, individualized, customized action plans for walking and wheeling to school more often. And so this is done through committees in every school that are supported by regional committees that have the staff, that have the resources to support depending on what it is that they want to do. So there's 2 different types of committees, a local one, a regional one, and a facilitator between them. The local committees are the schools that have their own committee that's composed of teachers, staff, administration, parents, students, public health nurse, and other groups, community members. And then there's the regional committee that has all the, I guess the expertise, you can call it. You set up a committee at the beginning in each school, you collect data, you do an action plan, you implement the action plan, and then revise it in year 2, and you keep on going. This is more like a document and a process, both of them together. It's evidence-based because you collect data to support the action plan, what you decide to do, and it's community-driven. So the community decides what should be done. And it's not just one person deciding, but it's a committee. And then it's customized, as I said, right? It's not that one size fits all, because that's not the case. Every community is different. It's collaborative because all the stakeholders are there to support as needed. And it supports many local, regional, and national priorities, a lot of strategies and frameworks that have been developed, and policies and plans for supporting that. There's also a well-known study on its cost-effective intervention value for this kind of programming that is kind of staff intensive, but it produces amazing results. So we talked about this because a lot of people don't know that we had this kind of programming here. This school travel planning existed in HRM for a number of years, and it started in 2007, 2009 in a few schools as a pilot program, one of which was my daughter's school, and that's how I got involved in this, and actually in this field, that kind of switched my own career path. And so this is where it was piloted as part of a Canada-wide project. And then it continued on in a few schools, 2010, 2013, 15. In 2015, it was discontinued. The program was discontinued because funding was cut. It was mostly coming from the provincial government, and it was decided that it was not going to continue. It came back in 2017 through 19, and then the program was discontinued, not because of lack of funding, but the program itself, I was part of this project from the beginning, and it was working on this and at the Ecology Action Center for a number of years on this program. And it was discontinued because it was decided that they wanted to focus on other programs and activities. But we do know that this program has been very effective. There's lots of lessons learned from it. Champions are important. It's important to embed this in the curriculum, in the school success plan. It's important to involve the community, take 2 steps forward and 1 back, and evaluate constantly, and recognize the individual and school efforts constantly, and also build on success. Start small and build on success. we have developed certain ideas to include in this kind of setup facilitator training and some sort of maybe embedding these in the current landscape of IT, where you have portals and you have resources that are available to the staff and to the members of the community, and they can include words to celebrate successes and et cetera, et cetera. It was mostly an achievement program. We didn't get to pilot this, but it was an idea. Now, school travel planning was one where there is, because of the knowledge that has been developed over time in different provinces in Canada and internationally, we know that many of the programs that have succeeded included 5 ingredients, and those are the staff and community involvement and support from the schools, community commitment from regional school transportation authorities and municipal level stakeholders. It was important to have systematic and coordinated efforts for data collection, to develop action plans and evaluate programs. It was critical to have continued financial support for these. And that means financial support, not just for activities, but also for staff that assist, and that would be the facilitators. And it was important to have the schools that are engaged and are ready to celebrate and achieve new goals, to have them motivated. And this was introduced later on over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years. In the UK, they have the MoChief Stars program, where they actually give awards at the national level. In Ontario, a colleague of ours who was invited at these stakeholder sessions gave a presentation on how they have been using certificates of achievement for schools, awarding points for all their activities. And that has, and is not competitive, it's their own, setting their own targets and always improved and share knowledge and learnings from each other. So this has been very effective. Let me see if I can move this one. Sorry, excuse me. So in that first session, we talked about this, and we also talked about systems change. The fact that in order to change the trends that we have, it's important to have not just good policies, but also good practices, programs, good resources, connections, communication between people. And also, in order to achieve not just structural change, but transformational change in society, you need to change your mental states, the habits of thoughts, the things that we have taken for granted, and often, like even for school streets, complete streets I'm talking about here. Complete streets where you want to think of also putting pedestrians first, you have to act on it. So changing the state of the mental state of everybody who participates, even the people who have, the stakeholders that have the decision-making power, is really important here. We talked about also collective impact as an approach of working together. And this is what we've been using over the last 4 sessions. Try to work together as a network, learning together and aligning our actions and goals to achieve this population and system level change. This collective impact was developed by Tamarack Institute, and this is what we've been using as a framework for working, not necessarily to follow it step by step, but the idea, the approach, grounding the work in data and context, and also the target solution. So putting the effort in that, focusing on systems change, not just the one little minor thing, but the big picture change, in addition to programs and services, shifting the power to the collaborative group, listening to community, and they are part of the effort as well, and build equity and leadership and accountability. This is what we've been taking as an approach. We mentioned in one of or two of the sessions that we do have a lot of relevant policies and great policies that are there to support us. It's not just policy that we need often to be able to make progress on active school travel. There is federal level policies and there is regional policies. I'm not gonna go through them all. You know, even the Let's Get Moving, Nova Scotia, we have the Physical Activity Framework, Traffic Safety Act, Student Transportation Policy, we have HRM, Integrated Mobility Plan. We have so many policies that are there to support, but yet we're not making progress on that. And the reason, one of the barriers that we noticed was the lack of, infrastructure, evaluation, school site. There was a lot of things that were brought up in the very first session as to what the barriers are, what could facilitate a shift in these trends. And so this is what we've been working on. And after the first,
about 5 minutes left.
yes, thank you. So in order to move this forward, we tried to re-engage the people in December last year. And after that, we started developing a common agenda, a shared vision, in order to get an action plan, outcomes and metrics. We had an online questionnaire given out to people to fill out. And we thought, what is needed in addition to good policies, what is needed to effectively increase the rates, the active school travel rates in our region, and why? And we gave people the opportunity to kind of check on a list of things that they thought was more important to focus on. The one that came up on top was more emphasis on more or better resource flows. 78%, 72% of people thought that we needed more or better connections between the actors, and by actors we mean the schools and the stakeholders. And in the third place came more or better effective programming and more or better communication between them. So those are the ones that were the most important for participants. And we had a session where we talked about the strengths, the people who were attending, what they thought was the greatest strength, because the people who are making up the group are going to be contributing their best to the efforts. And so we realized that we had a lot of people who said, we have funding to contribute to these. We have control and influence of, the existing frameworks and policies. We are the ones doing policy, so we can make it better. And we can change things as we need. We have the knowledge and the expertise, and we have an interest, and we're ready to work. So that was a very good strength, and that gave us a challenge to start working. And where do we start? And there was some ideas to capitalize on certain things and not others, but it was important to align and leverage existing public stakeholder engagement activities, what we have now. It was important to maybe coordinate new potential research efforts or existing ones, data collection, coordinate upstream, meaning, to change things, not just one thing, but at the systems level. Also, we had some aspirations to change, increase the awareness and knowledge of the existing landscape in active school travel. And so those were the aspirations, some results. We wanted to have changing modes of transportation overall. So these were some of the outcomes of these discussions. I'm sharing now some of the conditions that we know. I mean, part of the success of this project was that people had a common agenda, common measurement tools, because we're working together, reinforcing activities, continuous communication, and had maybe some kind of a organization, a group of people that could coordinate all of these efforts. And in order to get there, we started working on critical shifts, things that needed to change. I'm going to be just focusing on a few of those. We want to change. In order to build this agenda, we had to work on critical shifts. These were the changes that we thought had to be changed. And we asked people to think of what it is that we want to do together, but not so much how we're going to change it, because we wanted to know what the current state is, the future state we want to achieve, and how we're going to get there we can work on in the action planning process. And so people identified a number of issues. We also prioritized them. And so these are the things that came out of these conversations. The number one outcome of these discussions was that we people at the table wanted a model for open communication between the schools and decision makers was a priority number one. Another critical shift was the second one in priority was having a designated staff person at the school level, HRC level, a person who's responsible or dedicated AT consultant to advise schools, and funding from HRM and Nova Scotia to create safe AT infrastructure and supporting the active school travel initiatives in the schools, and also funding to support schools that don't have proper infrastructure currently. These are the resource flows. So relationships and connections and resource flows, this kind of reflects what the online survey showed. You know, this is what the priority were. People came up with critical shifts that they prioritized them and they really match what the online survey told us. Some of the policies that people thought needed some work were the school siting, school supervision, school transportation, and other things that had to do with physical environment policies like lower speed limits. And then practices regarding snow clearing. It was also, another one was the prioritization of safe infrastructure. So HRM, it was felt that HRM needed to prioritize maintenance around schools, especially during winter. Designated safe routes to school. People thought that maybe HRM could contribute that way. Maybe HRM could do some changes to reduce congestion around schools by restricting vehicular access to front of schools. That's like the school streets projects that you might have heard of. And also it was important to get maybe HRM to make ASD more appealing to kids and parents by changing the physical environment infrastructure. So also people felt that there was other important outcomes, and these 11, 12, 13, these are all the outcomes that people felt. I'm not going to go through them all. There was many more. Overall, there were 18. And so in the last session, we worked on the actions. So that was what we wanted to do in the last session. That session, we worked on how we're going to do it and who's going to be involved, et cetera, et cetera. And the last thing we did in those sessions was work on the leadership and governance model for the group. And it was felt that there was this model that actually comes from Collective Impact that has a superstructure of people, stakeholders, divided into action teams, each action team working in a separate action area. And so people are contributing their own skills and expertise, and action teams would be people working on, say, school travel planning, helping school travel planning in schools later on. And so this is my last slide here. For this leadership and governance model, one of the pros that came out of the discussion was that this kind of structure provides clarity and hierarchy that is effective, we know, and includes everybody. Everybody has a say and they can choose how to contribute. It has another advantage, which is building upon shared purpose. So people are aligned around the table and discussing things regularly, not every day, not every month, maybe every 3 months, coming together to discuss this. It allows this thing and allows this flexibility, you know, who is engaged and how much, depending on their skills and expertise and their availability. The cons that were discussed and brought up were the fact that this requires allocating resources, of course, and engaging the relevant people. It requires effective communication and decision-making. And it has the risk of shifts in government priorities that might undermine the group's work. So this is all what we've done over the last year. And we are at a point where this was the funding that gave us these opportunities to meet together and discuss these things, but this is where it ended. At this point, we are expecting that there might be funding coming through to continue these discussions and establish maybe sort of a partnership, council alliance that would support all of this work moving forward into phase 2, which would be refining this draft action plan with outcomes, and metrics. The outcomes we have some actions that are attached to it, but we need to add the metrics and we need the support, the financial support to put it into action. So this is it. And I just wanted to give you a taste, and I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share this with you. Many of you were part of these stakeholder sessions, and I'm sure, I believe this might be relevant for the kind of work that you're trying to do in HRM. I will take questions if there are any, and any suggestions, comments. I'm glad to take those too.
Thank you very much, Natalia. That's a lot for us to think about and discuss. And I know that we will be looking at a motion shortly relating to this, but for now, let's just have a general discussion relating to your presentation. I'm hoping, by the way, that perhaps you could make available the PowerPoint presentation directly to the committee members. I know the YouTube will have that, but I think committee members would like a copy. I hope you're willing to do that.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Okay, great.
So that will be added to the Halifax website, and it was distributed with the agenda package, or it was distributed as an update, but I can also, Natalia had added a few slides, so I can send that tomorrow to all members.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to proceed through a speaking list to allow everyone the chance to ask questions or make comments. And I'll start with Councillor Paddy Cuttle.
Thank you. I was going to say, why don't you put me on last, and that way, after everyone has a chance to speak and ask questions, I could ask my questions and put the motion.
That's fine. I'm assuming you will actually be moving the motion. So
yeah, well,
yeah. We'll come back to that then. I'll move on to Brittany McLean.
Thanks, Hugh. And thank you for the presentation. I do have one question. I noticed throughout the slides, a lot of it was focused on the Halifax Regional Center for Education. I am curious if throughout the programming, the Acadian School Board was also consulted, and if the policies, policies for snow clearing or adequate infrastructure leading up to the schools, if the CSAP school system will also be included in that. Just out of curiosity, I know CSAP is province-wide. They have schools throughout the province. So I don't know if that is what makes maybe policy a little bit more difficult, but I do know some of the children are bused. There's a big number that use the buses to get to school, but then there's also probably hundreds of students as well who live in nearby neighborhoods and are still walking to school or biking, or could have the opportunity to. Instead of parents driving them. So just curious about that.
Yes, no, that's a great question. We did invite CSAP to the very first meeting and subsequent meetings. And we had somebody who was working, it was actually the Schools Plus group that represented CSAP. And it wasn't, we were not discussing specific schools or anything like that. But it is a fact that the French schools, just because by definition, most people don't live around the schools, and 95% of the kids are bused. So there is very little chance for them. It's like in a rural area trying to promote walking to school where you don't have any sidewalks or any infrastructure whatsoever. It would be similar to that. So they require a separate treatment, and they would fall more under what you would do with rural schools. But that does not mean that we're not trying to include them. In fact, one of the outcomes, and it has to do with a transformational shift, is the fact that in one of the outcomes on the list that you will see, if you didn't notice that one, because I skipped through all of them, it was at the very end of it. It talks about the need to think about rural and urban differently. And that is really important because not all the schools are created equal. And that was one of the points that was made too, right? That it has to be, whatever we do has to take into account the fact that schools are different and it needs to be customized. And this is actually one of the advantages of the school travel planning program model, where, it takes into account that fact. Each school requires different supports. They have different needs. And they were not overlooked. We're mentioning HRCE because that's the school board that has the majority of schools in HRM, but we did include them, and they did attend at least 2 sessions.
Okay, great, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Michelle Mahoney. Any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time. Great presentation, Natalia. This is my very first meeting, so I'm really quiet.
Okay,
No worries.
thank you. Okay, Michelle. Miles McCormick.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Natalia, and thank you very much for the presentation. Something that's near and dear to my heart, as you know. One of my big takeaways is the shift to move, not just with reading, writing, arithmetic in school, that there is this need for AST. And I think anything that we can do to support this is something that'll make small changes, which will manifest in the larger ones. One of my biggest concerns as we're doing this is when you look, and you touched on it, new school construction, this is like an afterthought, and it continues to be. And I think it's something that we as a committee really have to advocate. When you do look at new school construction, this is not something that's taken into consideration. I hate to say it, but that is the fact. So, and I think the other thing too is that if there is a way to gain support from all levels, whether it be from the department down to police services, to assist with what's going on, because as you said, Natalia, each school is a different entity in itself, and there is that need for support at the school level. And also one of the things is to start looking at costs, which is becoming prohibitive, in particular where volunteers need, as an example, police records check. Something along those lines that would assist. It's a small step, but for a school on a limited budget or parents on a limited budget to have to pay to volunteer is something that we have to look at. So these are excellent steps, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you again, Natalia.
Thank you. I think this is a great point. I mean, the fact that school siting, it looks like people are aware that people want to be able to walk to school. That's the idea, right? Yeah. And schools are not being built close by. In general, yes, our government is keeping that in mind, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work that way, and we should be making an effort to do better. And I guess our plan is to have maybe school siting be one of the issues that are talked about as part of one of the action team tables, right? The one table that works on policy, for instance. Yeah, so it's really important.
I think the thing too is to stress the importance of the safety. I mean, like, this is a recipe to help in an area where your most critical resources are and they're unsafe, right? And policing, it doesn't matter. So a lot of things is people have taken this change to move towards using cars to get there, and I think anything that we can do will make a difference. So as I said, it's great to see you, and I look forward to this moving forward again. So thank you again.
Yeah, in connection with your question and the one from Brittany, there is a school that's being planned right now in the peninsula. I don't know if you're aware, on Bayers and Oxford Street, the corner of Bayers and Oxford. It's a French school. Yeah. And that French school was designed to have a big drop-off loop in front for cars to drop off their kids. Mind you, mostly it's busing, and they have a big bus loop in the back. I've seen designs for that, and there is an effort on the part of parents to get rid of the loop. And I believe they've succeeded. They recently had some meetings with the administration and some people in the province to get rid of the loop. And they have, in the end, I believe, switched the loop for basketball courts. Yes, so this is a plus.
Yeah.
And even that school doesn't have a lot of walking, but there is another school nearby, which is St. Catherine's, where there's a lot of kids walking there, and having a lot of cars dropping off kids in the loop that invites more driving. It was something that they managed to avoid, and they promised they were going to replace that. It's not in the drawings yet, but they're going to put a couple of basketball courts instead of a loop.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Holly Woodill. Holly?
There, I'm unmuted. I'm very familiar with this program and from here in Nova Scotia and elsewhere, including the States and even Australia. So they're very much all the same, but from a trails point of view, whenever there's a development put in, the offset should be, and the HRM province should focus on it. The offsets that the developers have to put in are safe pathways. And that part of it is the infrastructure that's outside of the school that helps this program succeed, is have those safe pathways, whether it's active transportation greenways, as in Forest Hills, or from one community, sub-community to another. These are extremely important to making these cycling and walking programs work. And we don't have enough of that connection in HRM. And when you're talking about these programs, that should be part of the discussion. And that's why I'm so familiar with them. And HRM's doing a much better job, aren't we, David? And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I can comment on that if you want. It's just quickly that Shatford Memorial Elementary, that's in Hubbards, was one of the schools that participated in the pilot for school trial planning. They actually put in their action plan to have access to the trail behind, so people could use that to bike to school, because it wasn't safe to bike along Highway 3, I believe it is. So that was one of the priorities, right? So trails are really important in rural areas, especially where infrastructure is really poor.
But trails aren't simply through the woods.
No, I know, but that's one where it is. Yeah.
But the active transportation corridors and the webs that need to be put in place to make it work.
Yeah, and people need to be aware of where they are and see the advantage of using that to get to school. So this is something that we can work on to, I guess, educational and also kind of supportive of the school, you know, showing the best routes and safer routes to get to school. It's really important. It happens within HRM too. Here in HRM, I mean, in the core urban area, there is Clayton Park, for instance, has a number of trails, and it's critical that those are provided, you know, they have access to the schools and they're not closed off or they don't get rid of them.
And they're working well. So.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Oh, okay. Okay, we lost you there for a moment there, Holly. Just give me a moment. Natalia, can you, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Okay. I lost you on my screen. I don't know if other people had the same problem.
No, you were frozen.
Yeah. By the way, Natalia, you don't have your video on.
Oh,
it would be useful if you did.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on then to Milena Casanavicius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Natalia.
Hi.
Nice to see you, my friend. I just want to applaud you for a fantastic job through the whole process of this. Congratulations. I don't really have any specific questions, just a few quick comments. One, that there are many people who've been hearing about this and what you've done in the last year. And I think moving forward, you will have a lot more participants if you shall continue, and I believe that you will. Second, because we have Councillor Cuddle here, you know, one of the what I've noticed living for 22 years in District 8, right around the same schools you're speaking of, St. Catherine's, Oxford School, and the new school that will be built, is the permittance of infringements upon our sidewalks during development. And while it is necessary to begin the projects and all the fancy expensive condos that are going up, it is not necessary to cut off our sidewalks for 3 to 4 years. And I'll give that North and Oxford as a prime example, where 3 sidewalks were encroached upon and only 1 temporary sidewalk is put up on North Street to get to where people need to be going. The number of students in 22 years walking to Oxford St. Catherine's has diminished. And I know this because I walk every morning and every evening with my guide dog. Never mind that I'm blind, because I can hear the kids screaming, yelling, running towards school. It has diminished because our sidewalks are encroached upon. And that is one of the biggest infrastructure issues. Never mind the whole safety and crosswalks. We're all already aware of that. But I think we really need to move towards not permitting during development the taking up of space on our sidewalks, because parents don't feel safe with their little ones, particularly in the elementary systems, to let their little kids go and walk out on the street. And they are doing it. I guarantee you that. And that would be one of the only comments I will say, because we do have our lovely counselor here. But other than that, congratulations, kudos to you, and whatever is needed, because I will have to be dipping out of here fairly shortly. But my full support for whatever we put forth.
Thank you.
End of thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Milena. Elizabeth Pugh?
Yeah, hi, Natalia. Great to see this project sort of moving along and wrapped up into one presentation. I also want to say that it was really nice to participate in this, because I actually got to meet a lot of people on this committee in person, which was kind of a bonus. I just the school siting is something I'm quite interested in as well. And I just wanted to make the comment that when we were going through the workshops, I did actually go and talk to the person within our department who is responsible for school siting, hoping to get him to come and give a presentation. It just didn't work out because I thought it could be really beneficial for people to hear from him. And I found it really very eye-opening, because when I went down for a 10-minute chat and left an hour and a half later, he walked me through at least half a dozen schools where they had tried to put it in a location where people could walk, and they got stonewalled every time at every turn. It was a developer that wouldn't sell, or would only sell for a cost that was crazy. It was land that HRM owned, but they had another plan for it and didn't want it to be for a school. It was not enough room for the field, or too far for the field. And now they might have kids walking to school, but they can't access their, they can't get outside for recess because there's no place for them to do that they could comfortably do within the amount of time they have to do it. I mean, the reasons went on, and they were things that you would not expect. So I think it might be worth somehow trying to have a closer conversation, or I'd love to see how we can overcome this hurdle, I guess, is because we are trying, and it may not look like it, but there's reasons that people probably wouldn't even conceive of that are sometimes getting in the way, and they're just as legit as everything else. So just a bit of caution, but I really do hope that we can improve the situation, because as you know, it's something I'm very interested in as well.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm aware that there is one person in your department that works around school siting. We did invite as well 2 people from the Department of Education who work around school siting, and 2 of them agreed to come and cancel last minute. So hopefully in the future, when we do have more work happening on that, they manage to attend and provide their skills and expertise and get some things changed around that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Peter Zimmer.
Hi, Natalia, a great presentation. I learned much. I was also a participant in your process, or in the last half of it. It's great. I guess I'd focus my concern on this is there's mention of enforcement, but we see in the bailiwick of the province, they are seemingly not at all interested in using modern technology to figure out how to observe and keep track, and if necessary, penalize people who are speeders or reckless or, make bad turns. I mean, the photo radar ticket issuing systems are widely available and they work. They've been proven to work elsewhere in Canada. And, for such things as saying, oh, there's no drop-off zone along the schools. Well, if people start getting tickets, it's been proved elsewhere, they quickly learn to not do that.
Yeah.
So, it's a piece of a attitude that says we should just keep on doing things the old way we've all done it.
Yeah.
That tickets are issued by cops chasing bad guys. No, not true. And I think for the Active Transportation Committee, we can play a role in emphasizing that that's not an adequate model in the 21st century.
Yeah. No, those things exist. They're not cheap, though. All technology is expensive. There might be other ways, and we do have a proposal to have alternative approaches like interventions such as school streets, where you actually close down the whole street in front of the school or parts of it. So there is no access during drop off or pickup, except for, emergency vehicles or residents that need to go in, like the occasional car. So there might be ways of avoiding that without going through these technological expensive infrastructure.
Oh, I have one kind of question on that. It costs too much process. How the hell much are we paying if a kid gets smacked to the pavement and ends up in our healthcare system? It is the meter runs extraordinarily high. I'm, leaving aside the sheer inhumanity of this, but to say, oh, something that costs $10,000 that you can move around the city and actually slows down traffic. Hey, that is a tiny, it's pocket change into what happens in our health system. It's pocket change in construction of divided highways. I mean, frankly,
Chair, can I just make a point of order? I'm not sure what this question is directed. Right now, we're in the question period. I'm just wondering how this question is relevant.
Well, let's thank you.
I just looking at the time.
Yeah, you're right. Let's keep our questions and comments directed specifically. Let's just move on then to Douglas Wetmore.
Thank you, Hugh. And thank you, Natalia, for a very, very meaty conversation there. There was a lot of information there. Just coming from my own perspective, because I went to high school through 2012 to 2015, which I like to think wasn't a decade ago, but alas. And even just thinking of my experience, I was fortunate enough to walk more or less every day, but thinking about the barriers and challenges that made me want to think otherwise. I guess for reference, this would have been in the relatively developed parts of Lower Sackville. There was very little sidewalks on a lot of the street. About half of our walk was on sidewalk, the other half would be on road. Weather wasn't too big an issue for us, but it was really amplified by lack of infrastructure, lack of snow clearing, made it very difficult. And especially thinking of biking, I biked for about a month in high school, and then I realized you weren't allowed to bike on sidewalks, and then I may as well have just thrown my bike in the garbage because there was no way I was going to bike on the roads, given the lack of infrastructure for bike lanes, lack of safety regulations in the communities that I was in, thinking Glendale Drive, Cobequid Road area.
Yep.
So no, I'm very pleased to see that pretty much all of these were addressed as part of your presentation, and these are all things being taken into consideration. Even thinking back to Miles McCormick's comment about where are we building schools today, I'm thinking, I've got Google Maps open and I'm staring at the new spot for the West Bedford school that's being developed up in West Bedford, and thinking about how, as of right now, we've only got one bus route going through that area, which I think does 4 trips in either direction a day. We've got a little bit of sidewalk and bike infrastructure which is nice, but a lot of it is very road focused and designed towards moving cars, and really amplifying what we need to do to make sure that we've got a future of students walking.
Mhm.
I'm very pleased to see everything you brought up here, and as I'm pretty sure you're going to get with all of us, you're going to have unanimous support from myself.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. As chair, I'll just make a few brief comments as well. I was fortunate to be invited to the various roundtables and followed this process through, and I did invite that Walk and Roll should make a presentation to this committee, and I'm personally very hopeful that the motion, which you're about to hear, will be approved, preferably unanimously. For myself, I think the most important thing that HRM could do is financial contribution towards furtherance of this process, and in particular to help fund a permanent advisory position that all schools could draw on. And for this committee too, the very important aspect is that the infrastructure around schools and between schools. I think this committee needs to focus more on prioritizing active transportation around schools. And I hope that's something else that will come out of this process. With that, I think this is a good time then for Councillor Cuttle to make the motion that has been prepared, and we'll need a seconder for the motion. Councillor, would you like to make the motion now, and please read it?
Thank you. I will. I'll put it in the chat and I'll read it. I just have a few comments before. I just want to say thank you, Natalia, for the presentation today, but also all the work that has gone on in the background over the past year to get us to this point. It's, you know, you've captured a lot of really practical information, everything from programs in other cities and other places, examples, where funding is, who the stakeholders are who need to be at the table, as well as the ideas. And I think that's a pretty solid foundation for us as a city, I hope, to be able to say, okay, where can we plug in and support this and help advance this initiative of, active school transit. Just to comment on a couple of the other points that were brought up around the sidewalks. Is Melania still here? I think there is a motion at council about that right now at some council. I can't remember where, but that is a concern about cutting off the sidewalk access, and it also contributes to school safety. I completely agree. And the school siting, a large part of what's happened is we've kind of lost, we used to have a national urban strategy or agenda that looked at these things, and we've kind of siloed everything where we have the province and the municipality not working. And that's why I'm so glad in this document we see, it's a real opportunity to kind of bring those partners back to the table to talk about this. And it's not just schools, it's also about community centers and fire stations, and how we're ensuring that we create kind of the land banks in our centers to have the school, but to have the community amenities we need to support the population. So this is such a critical discussion and such an important piece. So yeah, I think there's been a lot of momentum here. We need to keep it going. I'm really curious about what your next steps are immediately after this. You said you might have some funding and there might be some more work. And so I'm really curious about that. And also, I'd love to keep seeing this getting socialized out more publicly. I'm glad it's here at this committee, but many of us were involved and supportive. And the question is like, how do we broaden this so that like maybe we need articles in some magazines that, you could, take all this information so that we can continue to change the culture that around active school transit and get people used to this idea, which then puts the pressure on the politicians and on the other levels of government to start to do things differently. So we're not just doing them the same way we always have. With that, I'm going to put the motion on the floor that we worked on with Elizabeth and Hugh and myself, that the committee recommend that the Transportation Standing Committee direct the CAO to prepare a staff report on HRM developing and adopting an active school transit policy and plan, including considerations of partnering with other stakeholder agencies and allocating funding for necessary education and infrastructure. So I've just plopped that in the chat there if anyone wants to read it.
Just a slight correction there. It's active school travel, not active school transit.
All right. I don't think
there's a difference.
Right. Okay. So
okay.
we'll go. I'll redo that with the right word. There we go.
Okay. So that's the motion. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Peter Zimmer, you have your hand up. Thank you. Now, we've already had some discussion, but if anyone wants to jump in at this point with any further comment, or indeed whether you want to see an amendment to the motion, now is the time. I would suggest you either put your hand up or just speak now. Okay, I don't see any hands up. No one's speaking. So we can move directly to the question. Those in favor of the motion, as we've just heard it, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay or raise your hand.
We just get people to either say nay or aye, just because we can't, when it's live streamed on YouTube, the viewer won't be able to see if everyone is raising their hand or who's raising their hand or not.
Okay, so you're saying everyone should actually speak, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, let's do that again then. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any more? Okay. And I can say aye as well, although I'm not sure I'm allowed to do so as chair. Those opposed to the motion, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining from the motion? Then I believe we had a sufficient number of ayes to that motion that it does pass. Yeah. Correct, Elizabeth?
Yep. So you can declare that has passed.
Thank you. That's great. Let's hope this leads to real progress on this whole issue. And I think it's very important that the next stage would be a staff report to the Transportation Standing Committee, and from there, hopefully, to full council. All right, let's continue then with the agenda. Thank you, Natalia, very much for making your presentation, and we certainly wish you success with this whole project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the support from the councillors too. Patty, could I?
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on then to item 8. Sorry, item 9. There's item 8 is information items brought forward, and there are none. So information, item 9 is reports and discussion. And as usual, we will have a staff update from David McIsaac. So David, you have the floor. Is David still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, Hugh. Thank you very much. First thing is we now are back to being fully staffed in the Active Transportation Planning and Programs group. So you'll meet these folks as projects come forward, but Anders Turum is a planner who was with Parks and has now moved over to our group. Martin Bryan is another new AT planner. He's an engineer. He was a traffic analyst, and now he has moved into our group as an AT planner. And then Catherine McClellan, who had been with our group last year, then Brittany will know Catherine quite well, spent a year working on a number of projects with Cycling Nova Scotia and is going to rejoin us later this month. So we'll, I think coming out of that, I think they're all just kind of getting used to their jobs and picking up projects. And there's going to be a lot of public engagement this fall on a bunch of different projects. So we're just trying to figure out a way to potentially make that more effective and combine it rather than it being kind of a scatter shot of a bunch of different projects. Anyway, I'll probably come back to this committee with a bit more information and hopefully look for some feedback on what we might try to do there. Anyway, so staffed up, good news. Last week at council or 2 weeks ago council, I can't quite remember anymore. We had 2 items that were approved relevant to active transportation. The area rate for new sidewalks and multi-use pathways for the East Preston community was approved. So that kind of paves the way, for them to now get a multi-use pathway built in their community. Natalia, is she still? Yeah, she's on the call. Great. She's been instrumental in terms of working in that community to advance their AT goals. So this was one of the final steps to getting that built. And it's also our first rural community that's kind of gone through this process. So we will also now kind of replicate that. First, we need to talk to them about a tax rate change, and then we get to talk to them about a sidewalk. But we'll be going into communities like Musquodoboit Harbor, Porters Lake, Hubbards, Lucasville. There's 2 or 3 more that we might get to talk about the area rate this fall. So that's coming up. Oh, and then the other thing that was approved at council was shared micromobility, which this committee's obviously been quite active with. So council approved some quote rules of the road for their use and gave us direction to pursue a 2-year more regulated approach to e-scooter share and bike share. There's lots of little pieces of tactical kind of quick build bikeway going in the regional center right now. And we're tweaking it as we build it. So you'll see some of that. We're going to do a bit of a public service announcement and outreach as that gets built in the next month or so. I think we've got almost all of our contribution agreements signed for our contributions to the community trails associations who operate and maintain facilities. Mostly this is a lot of the provincial rails to trails corridors and the provincial AT corridors, or the AT corridors are in provincial parks. I'll leave it at that. That's some of the highlights of what's going on right now.
Okay, thank you. I can just briefly go through the speaker list again if there are any questions or concerns from committee members. Holly Woodall.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Holly. Milena, are you still there?
No, I think she left some time ago.
Oh, because she's still showing on the screen. Okay.
Elena left around 5:30, but actually, yeah, she is still showing. Maybe she just didn't officially leave the meeting, but
Okay.
I don't believe she's.
All right, Elizabeth Pugh.
Oh, nothing from me. Thanks, David.
Okay, Peter Zimmer.
No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Councillor Cottle has left. She did make her apologies. Michelle Mahoney.
No comment. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle. Miles McCormick.
No comments or questions, and thank you, David.
And Brittany McLean.
No real comments, just to say that we're sad to see Catherine go, but very excited that she will be a good connection working with HRM. So we're excited for the future for her. I do have a comment quickly about Natalia's work. Is it too late to say something really quick? It's more of an opportunity for us as a group, just that the HRM suburban plan is kind of now in the works. And I feel like it's a really good opportunity because site selection for schools is one part of it, but then the other part is that we're just building unsustainable suburbs, right? I mean, the municipal policy doesn't incorporate that there should be, no policies I've come across say that there should be a nice healthy network and school paths that are leading to schools. So just thinking about that and how we are advocates in the community, once HRM goes out to public engagement for that, I feel like we should all show up to those meetings and start advocating for stronger policy in the new suburban plan in order to make Natalia's work a little bit easier, right? To kind of like help guide her work going forward. That's all my comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Douglas Wetmore.
Thanks for the update, David. No questions or comments from me at this time.
Okay, and ditto from me. I was very pleased to see that the e-scooter proposed bylaw did get second reading, and on that point, I was also very pleased to see that many of the suggestions from this committee did find their way into the staff report and the proposed bylaw. So excellent, at least from my point of view. That's very good news. With that, so thank you, David, for your report. The item 9.2, there is a quick update on general correspondence that was received and directed to me as chair. And I believe some of these, if not all of them, were also distributed to all the members. Wendy McDonald had a request for discussion on greenway lengths and park areas, which was a fairly technical request, and we did recommend that staff would be best placed to answer her questions. Nadine King had, again, a very specific concerns with the Bell Road bike lane. And again, because they were very specific, we suggested that staff should respond to her requests. So we did direct her inquiry to staff. And then more recently, Susan Cook has made a request that this committee discuss the Cycling Without Age e-tricycle program. And she would particularly like that program to be instituted in Muscodobit Harbour. We actually recommended that she should bring that to the committee as a presentation, and that should be happening at our September meeting. So that's the update on correspondence. Any questions on that? Peter?
I've been working with Susan on this presentation. I've been involved with the Cycling Without Age in Halifax through Northwood. And I've also recently fielded a request from Beechwood to say, can we put a trishaw in their annual parade? They're interested out there. I think it's a way of providing, the trishaws are a way of providing active transportation to people who are not self-mobile. I know Susan is working with the school system out there, and they have a number of students who are physically impaired. And she sees, and the principal there sees, that this would be a program that would be great for those students to be able to get out to cycle, to feel the wind in their hair or the wind on their faces, and see the world at a nice, slow, low speed. Susan, I know, sees the plan as being very much involved in the rural areas with the trails, to say, yeah, we got to be able to move the trishaws safely where there aren't cars sharing the road with them. So you will be hearing from Susan and from me at, we hope, the next meeting. So
Okay.
brace yourselves. We will be circulating some of the materials, some of the videos. We will be having a conversation with the founder of Cycling Without Age next Tuesday morning to talk about what he's learned in the 15 years since he founded the movement and how we make use of that. So exciting
Okay.
times.
Okay, Peter, we'll look forward to that presentation in September. There aren't no added items, so I'll just mention that the date of our next meeting is September 21st. There's no meeting in August. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn from somebody.
I can put that forward, Hugh.
Okay, thank you. No seconder is required. So we will adjourn the meeting. Many thanks to everyone for attending and for your contributions. We'll see you in September, if not earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good summer, everyone.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.